Okay folks, instead of doing this step by step because it's hard to do it on the grid, I actually scanned in my answer key so I can show you how I got the answers, and that might help you a little bit. So for the first one, we have to rotate 90 degrees counterclockwise. So remember, each quadrant is 90 degrees. So remember, if I'm doing counterclockwise, that means I'm going to the left. If I was going clockwise, that means I'd be turning it to the right. So 90 degrees counterclockwise would mean one turn to the left. So if you would actually rotate your paper and do it one turn to the left, starting at your origin, you would then have these ordered pairs. Let's say, for example, you didn't use ordered pairs and you used directions. You would have had right 2, down 5. For L prime, you would have had right 3, and you're not moving up or down at all. And for Z, you would have not moved right or left at all, but you would have went down 4. So remember, that's when you flip your paper back to normal and either plot by using the directions I have listed or plot using your ordered pairs. But make sure on the test you actually put in your ordered pairs, because that is part of your answer for your test. So make sure you would plot it correctly and actually state your new ordered pairs. Also make sure you're labeling with the primes or you will get that wrong on your test as well. So for this next question, I'm translating it 4 units to the right and 1 unit down. So that's why I put my symbols, right 4, down 1. So literally from every single point, I'm moving right 1, 2, 3, 4, down 1.
May I have your attention?
To get to G, same thing. I'm moving it 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 1. Y to Y prime, 1, 2, 3, 4, and down 1. Remember, like I said, to label correctly with your primes and label your ordered pairs as well. Translation. So for this one, I'm doing the same thing. X plus 1 means you're moving to the right 1. Y minus 2 means you're moving down 2. So from each point, just like before, I'm going to move right 1, down 2. Right 1, down 2. Right 1, down 2. And for E, I know we're off the grid, but it would be right 1, down 2. Then, once you do that, you are going to list your new ordered pairs. So remember, for T, if my origin is right here, the 0, 0, it would be, for T prime, I'm moving to the right 1 and down 3. So that's why it's 1, negative 3, and so forth. For the reflection across the x-axis, first thing I do is I'm going to draw my line of reflection, which is across your x-axis. Then I see that C was 1 unit above my x-axis, so I'm going to plot it 1 unit below. J is also 1 unit above, so I'm going to plot it 1 unit below. For letter M, we are going 2 units below, so M prime would be 2 units above. For K, we are going 1, 2, 3, 4 units below, so we are going 1, 2, 3, 4 units above. After you do that, you plot all of your points, make sure you label them correctly with the primes, and you list your ordered pairs because you must do that on your test. So for this one, what rule describes the transformation? As you can see, to get from, you start off with any letter you want, H, B, or C. So I'm just going to start to look at B. To get from B to B prime, I'm literally moving to the right 1 unit. Same with C to C prime. You want to double check that whatever you think it is, so I said right 1 works for every single letter. And from H to H prime, I'm doing the same thing. So since I only moved to the right 1 unit, that's why I put X plus 1, because that's along your X-axis. My Y-axis, I did not move up or down at all. That's why you leave your Y value the same. For the next question, this one to me looks like a mirror image. So if I try to draw my line of reflection, which would be right down here to have a mirror image, it's going to be a reflection Because to get from E to E prime, you're doing 1 unit in opposite directions. Double check for D and D prime. I'm moving 2 to the left, so I have to go 2 to the right, and so forth. So this is definitely a reflection, and since it's crossing through your x-axis at 1, 2, 3, that's why my line of reflection is x equals 3. Next question. What rule describes the transformation? Well, I can tell right off the bat that this is a dilation because my figure is either stretching or shrinking. So in order to do this, I'm going to list some ordered pairs. So you can pick any point you want to start. So let's say I pick, let's say we pick W. So the ordered pair of W is 0 because I'm not moving on my x at all, -2, and my ordered pair for W prime would be 0, -3. So once I have my 2 ordered pairs, I'm able to get my scale factor now because from W to W prime, I looked at my y values. So I went from -2 to -3. So remember, for scale factor, you always have to multiply. So I have to think -2 times what gives me -3. And in this case, you would get 1.5. Let's do the same thing for the next one. So I know it's a dilation, of course, because we are shrinking our figure in this case. And once we shrink our figure, my scale factor would have to be between 0 and 1. So let's just pick an ordered pair to start with. Let's say we pick the ordered pair L. So my ordered pair of L would be 5, 0. My ordered pair of L prime would be 2.5, 0. So to get from 5 to 2.5, remember you never divide for your scale factor. We are multiplying by a half. So that is why my scale factor is 1/2. Be careful, you always start with L, remember the letter without the prime, and you go to the letter with the prime. Like I said, you could have picked L's or V's to compare, or W's. Whichever one you wanted, you would still get that it was a scale factor of 1/2. So this transformation is definitely a reflection across your x-axis because it's a mirror image. If I think that's my line of reflection, even if it's wrong, draw where you think your line of reflection is and see if it's a mirror image. So here, I prime and I are definitely 1 unit away. E and E prime are on the exact same location. F is 1, 2, 3 units above, so F prime should be 1, 2, 3 units below, and so forth. For this one, I know, remember, that every quadrant is 90 degrees. So, if I rotate this figure 90, 90, 90, or you could think of it as 90, 180, 270. Since they were in opposite or diagonal quadrants and it moved, it actually shifted 1, 2 quadrants, it is 180 degrees. It does not matter if you go clockwise or counterclockwise for 180 degrees because you would end up at the same location. So for this one down here, the first thing I did was plotted my original ordered pairs. So that's what I did right here. Make sure you are labeling them correctly. Once I did that, I rotated my image 90 degrees clockwise. So since it's 90 degrees, I knew I was turning it 1 time, and since I went clockwise, I was turning it once to the right. So I know that it would be in my next quadrant. Remember, you can either flip it by turning it once to the right and either list your ordered pairs, which I have down here, or you could list your directions. So if you list your directions for B prime, you would only be moving up 2. If you list your directions for C prime, you would be going right 3, up 4. Z prime would have been right 4, up 3. X prime would be right 4, up 1. It does not matter if you use your directions or your ordered pairs. Remember, once you do that, you put your paper back to normal, and then you plot everything. Make sure you are labeling everything appropriately, and these all include your primes. If you do not do that, you will lose points on your test. And definitely know then to list your ordered pairs if you didn't. If you used your directions, make sure you list your ordered pairs in the end. Okay, so for this next one, it tells me I need to reflect along the y equals x axis. Remember, that is your diagonal line that I have drawn here going increasing through your origin. That would be my first step. My next step would be to plot your original values, which you would be able to see right here. Once you plot your original values, remember, to get your new image, you have to go perpendicular, which means like a 90-degree angle from your line. So you're kind of going diagonally. So remember, if I was getting K, I am 1.5 units away, so I would go 1.5 units in the opposite direction. If I was going to do J, I'm 1 unit in this direction, so I'm going to go 1 unit in the opposite direction. For A, I'm going 1, 2.5 in this direction, so I would be going 1/2, 1, 2 in the opposite direction. And for I, I'm going 1/2 in that direction, so I have to go 1/2 in the opposite direction. So like I said, anytime you're reflecting along the y equals x axis, plot what they want you to, draw your line y equals x, and remember to go perpendicular. Once you have your new figure, you are going to list the ordered pairs. Remember, on the test, if it told you to reflect along the y equals negative x axis, which I'm going to show you in blue, would have been the line decreasing from left to right that goes through your origin. So know the difference between y equals negative x and the line y equals x. Okay, so for this style of problem, it tells you we are translating 7 units right and 1 unit down. If it were me, I would put it in the XY notation like I did below, because that's going to help you whenever you're finding your new coordinates. So for example, since I moved to the right 7, that's why it's plus 7. Since I moved 1 unit down, that's why it's y minus 1. So now to find your new image, J prime, I'm going to plug in -3 in for my x. So for example, here's my rule, x plus 7, comma y minus 1. If I plug in -3 for my x value, because that was my x value of J, -3 plus 7 gives me a positive 4. Plug in my y value for J, which was -1, so -1 minus 1 gives me a -2. That's how I got this ordered pair. So all this one involves is plugging and chugging. Make sure you plug your x in for your x value and y in for your y values. For the next translation, it gave us the rule, x plus 6, y minus 3. You could also think of it right 6, down 3. But just like we did for this example, it's literally plugging and chugging. So if I have my rule, x plus 6, comma y minus 3, if I want to do s, -3 is my x value. So I would do -3 plus 6, which would give me positive 3. My y value was positive 3, so if I do 3 minus 3, I get 0. So that's how I'm getting s prime. Literally, like I said before, all you are doing is plugging and chugging in. For this one, I'm reflecting across my y-axis. So that's my first step, drawing a line down my x-axis. If I know I am 1 unit to the right, I'm going to go 1 unit to the left. 1, 2, 3 units to the right, so I go 3 units to the left. For Q, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the right, so I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4 units to the left. Make sure you are labeling correctly where G prime goes, Q prime, and so forth, and you always put your little primes there. For this one, it's a rotation of 90 degrees counterclockwise. So 90 degrees means 1 turn, and counterclockwise we are going to our left. So that's why we're in the next quadrant going to the left. Remember, you turn your paper once to the left, you find your new ordered pairs, which I have listed below right here, or your directions. If you'd used the directions, you would have had down 3, excuse me, I made a mistake. We would not have down 3, we would have left 3, down 3. For u prime, we would have had left 5, down 3. And for x prime, we would have just had left 5. We would not be going up or down at all because my y value was 0. Remember then, you turn your paper back to normal, and you either plot by using your ordered pairs or your directions, always starting at your origin. Make sure you label every single point with your primes. So for this one here, we are rotating 180 degrees counterclockwise. So that would be 2 turns. You can go left or right for 180 degrees because you will end up in the same location. So if you turn your paper 2 times to the left or 2 times to the right, you would get the following ordered pairs. Or if you use the directions, you would have right 5. We are not moving up or down at all. For T, you would have right 4, down 4. And for Y, we are not moving right or left at all, but we are moving down 2. After you do that, you turn your paper back to normal. You always start at your origin and either plot your points or use your directions. Make sure you label everything appropriately. For the next one, we are graphing the dilated image. So if it's a scale factor of 3/2, this is bigger than 1, so I know my image should be getting larger. My first step would be to actually list my ordered pairs. So for S, my ordered pair is 1, 2. For Z, it's -1, 0. And for T, it is 0, -2. Once I do that, I'm literally multiplying every single X and Y value by 3/2. So you're multiplying 3/2 times each X value, 3/2 times each Y value. Or you could write it as a decimal, which would be 1.5 times your X and 1.5 times your Y. That would result in what we have over here. After you get that, you're going to plot your points, which you will see here, and make sure you label everything appropriately and marking your primes. For this one below, our scale factor is only 1/2, so we know it's between 0 and 1, so my figure should be getting smaller. Just like before, I'm going to list my ordered pairs of E, M, and X. After you do that, just like we did, we are going to multiply each X and each Y by 1/2 or 0.5. So this would become like 0.5 times each X value and 0.5 times each Y value. Once you do that, you would have this information, and then you literally plot it, always starting at your origin. Make sure you label every single dot appropriately. For the reflection along X equals 1, that's the first thing I'm going to do is draw my line where X is 1, and then I'm going to mirror every single thing. So for Z, I'm going right 2. So for Z prime, I should be going left 2. D, right 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm moving to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so forth. So remember, this is always a mirror image. Right 2, so I go left 2. Right 1, 2, 3, left 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Remember, with reflections, you should be able to fold your paper along that line of reflection and everything should match up perfectly. So these are kind of hard to see, but just try your best. So the first thing I would do, here is my original image, and I labeled them A, B, C. First thing I did, I translated X plus 7, Y minus 1. So that means I was moving right 7, down 1. That would result in what I have over here. Once I did that, I was reflecting across my x-axis. So I drew my line along my x-axis, and remember, for every single point, if I'm going 1, 2, 3 below, I have to go 1, 2, 3 above, and so forth. So this is my final transformation after I reflected it. For number 2, first thing I did was translate it, so I'm not moving anywhere on my x, but I'm going y minus 8, so I have to go down 8. So if this is my original figure right here, I literally just moved everything down 8. So this was what you would have after your first transformation. Then it tells you to reflect over your y-axis. Well, here's my y-axis, and remember you want to be a mirror image. So if I went 2 units this way, I have to go 2 units that way. This grid is very hard to see, so just try your best. But remember, reflecting, it's just a mirror image. For number 3, the first thing I did, and to go back to number 2, this is your final answer, what you should have. For number 3, the first thing I did was translate, so I went right 6, down 2. So if this is my original image right here in this quadrant, so then basically that's what I did. I moved right 6, down 2 for every single point. This is what you would have after the translation. After that, I had to rotate 90 degrees clockwise, which would mean 1 turn to your right. So when I do that 1 turn to the right, you would have this image. Remember, you can either list your directions or the ordered pairs that I have here. Here we are translating the triangle 4 units left. So that is my first step, moving it 4 units left. So if this is my original figure, I'm just literally moving every single thing, every single point 4 units to the left. So this is the triangle you would have after the translation. After that, I'm doing 270 degrees clockwise, which would mean either 3 turns to your left, or technically, excuse me, hold on, I made a mistake. 270 clockwise would be 3 turns to your right, or technically, if you didn't want to do 3 turns, you could do 1 turn to your left and get the same thing. Remember, you either use your directions or you list your ordered pairs like I have here, and you plot your data. So this is your final answer after both the transformations. For number 5, you're translating the triangle 1 unit right, so 1 right, and then 5 up. So that's what I did. I moved it once to the right, up 5, once to the right, up 5, and so forth. So this is my triangle after the translation. Then all I have to do is reflect it across my y-axis. So remember, if I'm moving it so many directions in that way, I will do the same number in the opposite direction. Like I said, this grid is very hard to see, so just try your best, but you would have something that looks like this as your final answer. Do not stress if you're not getting these exactly correct, because this grid's a little hard to see. On your test, your grid is very large and very nice. Lastly, number 6, we are translating the triangle up 4 and left 1. So I'm basically moving left 1 up 4, left 1 up 4, and so forth. You would get a triangle that looked like this. After that, you are doing 180 degrees clockwise, which would mean 2 turns. It does not matter if you go right or left. Once you do that, you will plot your points, and you would get a final answer, something like this. Double transformations are a little tricky, but remember, do the first designated transformation, get your answer for that, and then just do the second transformation. It's really not that bad once you get a little bit of practice. So for this last page, we had to identify 2 transformations to go from one object to its image. So the first thing I did was I knew I had to reflect it across my x-axis because I needed them to sort of be in the same location. So if I reflected it, remember, if I go up 1, I have to go down 1, and so forth. So this is my image after the reflection. Once I did that to get to our image we wanted it to end up with, I thought about it. How could I shift it? Well, that's a translation. So I was literally sliding it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units to the right. That's how I get x plus 5. And then down 2 units on my y, y minus 2. So this is what you should have for your final answer for the first one. For the second one, the first thing I did was rotate it 90 degrees. And there's a mistake here. It should just be clockwise because I turned it once to the right. When I turned it once to the right, I ended up getting this triangle. But remember, I needed to get to this triangle as my final answer. Well, from this triangle to this triangle, all it is a reflection across your y-axis because it's a mirror image. 2 to the right, 2 to the left, 1 to the right, 1 to the left, and so forth. I hope this information helped you out a bit. Study hard. Let us know if you have questions, and good luck on your test. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.